All right, guys, I think now is a good time to get started, about 1 after. So we're trying to keep you guys only to about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. So just to kind of give you guys a goal and what we're thinking and why we're doing this and what we want to do to help you guys. Our goal is to help you guys with your practices and your player development. That's literally all we care about. This is actually our 6th year of doing coaches clinics for the local area. It's something that we're passionate about because we care so much about the kids and what the kids are going to get out of this. So we feel like, hey, let's help the guys that are going to and girls that are going to be actually working with these kids. So if we can kind of bestow a little bit of our knowledge and some of the things that we've done that's worked on our players, then obviously the community will grow. I am a lifelong resident of Wadsworth. It's actually 2nd generation. So my dad went through Wadsworth High School and all the lower levels, and me too, right? So I've never left. So I'm passionate about having Wadsworth becoming great at baseball because I love baseball. I played baseball. So I just took my hopes and my dreams and turned it into like a little tiny business, right? But this today is for you guys. It has nothing to do with us. We're not going to sell you anything. We don't care if you use our facilities. We want these kids to get better. We want these kids to have the same opportunity as our Outlaws have, as Madness Fast Pitch has, as IVL has, as the Medina Sting has, as Freedom Fast Pitch has. We want you guys to have the same opportunity and the same resources. So we are a resource for you. So I'm telling you right now, it's super easy to get a hold of me. My name is Mike, and it's at the Hit Warehouse. So Mike at the Hit Warehouse, you can email me anytime. Kailey, it's super simple. She's Kailey at the Hit Warehouse. So, reach out to us. Let us know what you need. Let us know if you're struggling with practice plans and different things like that. We'll even give you sample plans that you guys have areas that you're struggling with. So here we are getting kicked off with our 6th year of doing this. I know for a fact that I've talked to both the Wadsworth and then been reported, or the Wadsworth baseball and the softball now, that everybody's registrations are up, right? So that's a massive win for our community and for what we're trying to build here. So now, right, what about the players? What about them? It's their experience. It's not yours, right? At the end of the day, it's those kids' experience. I don't know. Like this board over here, one of the organizations we run 3 different organizations out of here: the Outlaw Baseball Club, the H24 Longhorns, and then Madness Fast Pitch. We have 22 teams and a couple hundred kids that play baseball and softball for us. Those are all the kids that through our Longhorns program have gone on to play college. Those are the only 4 that went on to play professionally. That's it. Your kids are not going to be professional baseball players. They're definitely not going to be professional softball players. Okay? Because there's Athletes Unlimited or whatever they call it that's out there running now that does a good job. But your kids, more than likely, by stats, are not going to be professional athletes. That's not to say they can't have the same dreams, the same goals, the same training, the same development, the same coaches that care for them, the same community that cares for them. That's our goal. That's our mission, to help kids win. We want our kids to get through our program and then give something back to this community. We want them the same way that I did. My dad handled everything in baseball in Wadsworth for 20 years, right? So it's only a natural progression that I did it. So, give back and give something to this community. So I appreciate you guys coming out. The fact that you guys are here today, there's 35 plus of you. That's huge for your leagues. So don't be afraid to ask for resources. I'm not going to talk much more. I got 2 other things I'm going to do. I'm going to let Coach Kailey hit you guys up with most of this stuff because she knows it better than I do. So thanks, guys. Oh.
Don't applaud him. All right.
That was for you. She said, "Don't applaud him." You guys don't know that's gonna do wonders for me in this building for a little while there.
Awesome. Well, I do want to thank you guys for coming out, right? So mixed in this room is baseball and softball. So I think it was big and important for me to be able to mix you guys back kind of together, just to see each other, intermingle with each other, learn from each other, right? Because at the end of the day, it is about the kids. So we're going to go through some things today, some practice planning. I'll take you through some drills that you guys can implement at practice, just some basic ones, and then answer kind of any questions that you have. Cool? Awesome. So big thing is like the essence of the game, why kids want to play, why we want, not even just baseball and softball, right? Youth sports in general. There's so many different things. They learn how to be a good teammate, how to, be competitive, and that's all life skills, right? You'll learn personal growth, building character, learn how to be selfless, right? Not everything's about you. It's about, helping the team, helping everyone else around you get better. That's what helps everyone win, and it helps your team win. I'm big on, failure, right? Learning how to fail. In life, you're going to fail over and over and 1,000 times, right? But I always call it's your first attempt in learning. So failure is never a bad thing, as long as you learn how to come back from it. Perseverance, obviously hard work. And then the biggest thing for me is making sure that these kids are learning life lessons, right? Being hard on them, but also loving them and pushing them, making sure that they know that you care first. Because you always see it, especially in the youth, you might yell at them, but you don't really know them yet, right? And everyone takes things differently. So getting to know your players before you're just hard on them helps them realize that you do care. It's not just always, a punishment. But then everyone learns different. Everyone responds differently. There's kids you can yell at and kids you can't yell at, right? Some people need to be pushed a different way, and others can be motivated just from being yelled at, if that makes sense. But the biggest thing is making sure they're having fun, right? The game only lasts so long. The next thing, how we conduct ourselves as coaches, right? You don't only represent your family, you represent yourself, you represent your kids, you represent your organization, and I'm huge on these things, right? So we want to make sure, one, we're always staying positive, we're not outbursting in the middle of games or in practices, right? We're not going to be screaming at players or umpires. That's huge, right? We have a huge lack of umpires in general, nationwide, at all levels, right? We can't be fist-fighting umpires in parking lots, yelling at them, quitting. Like, at the end of the day, yes, it's just a game, but, they're still human too, right? My biggest thing is when it's a judgment call, who cares? They're going to make mistakes. Sometimes they'll even own it later if you respect them enough, right? Just be like, hey, Blue, do you think, why did you make that call, or whatever the case may be? They have a different angle of the field. They might see something completely different than what you see, right? And that's fine. Not every umpire is going to come out from behind the plate and run to first base to make sure it's a good out, or it is truly an out, right? Or they're safe. So, again, they are just human, and they don't care about the outcome of the game, right? We want to make sure we're being supportive and encouraging our players to fail, to get better, right? Knowing where they are currently and pushing them to that next step without over-pushing them, We don't want to be using any foul language. I don't believe in tobacco also either in games, right? They don't need to be seeing that. They're young. The biggest one that I have as a coach is the 24-hour rule. You always have an angry parent, a kid who's upset, right? Or whatever the case may be. We want to make sure that feelings are kind of taken out of it, and sometimes taking a step away for 24 hours and just kind of putting yourselves in their shoes and trying to see from their perspective will help the situation a lot more than just you're fired up maybe because you lost badly, and then a lot of emotions, and then something happens that shouldn't happen, right? And you usually can't take that back. So we want to make sure that we are handling ourselves professionally, because again, you are representing your own name too, and baseball and softball world is very small. You don't want to, hinder something that could be in the future. You could talk to someone in another state, and more than likely they know someone in the area who knows you, right? So that's just my big thing on the 24-hour rule. Also, I find that, especially in small communities, you might be coaching someone's kid that maybe you aren't a big fan of, right? Don't ever take it out on the kid. The kid is a kid, right? They're their own person. They're their own everything, right? They might learn from their parent, but they're going to be completely different, right? So making sure that we're taking ourselves and our personal agendas out of coaching to just make sure that the kids are having a great experience, all right? You guys have any questions about any of that? Big one for me is the 24-hour rule, right? And making sure that we're conducting ourselves in a positive manner that will represent you for however long. I actually have a story about this. So it was 2, maybe 3 years ago. My team, we were scrimmaging a team from Cleveland. They came down. This was travel ball. It's not any different. But we had an umpire who was phenomenal. It was Halloween, so we brought candy for the kids, and just a fun experience. The kids dressed up in their Halloween costumes, which some of them weren't safe, but whatever. Just to have fun, right? And umpire missed a couple calls, and you could see internally the coach was just slowly just getting more and more pissed off. And we're like, okay, this is going to blow up. Well, finally, it did blow up. And the umpire was like, I'm just done with this, and just left, right? So my girls chased them down, apologized for the other team's actions. I didn't even know what was happening. I look over, and my team's like gone. And I had them come back and pay him. So I'm like, hey, run this out to him, right? I paid for both teams, both games. We didn't even play both games. And then the other coach, after the umpire was done, and all my girls were like appalled. They're like, what's going on? They go, are we still going to play? That's what the other coach said. I go, no, absolutely, we're done. And then so he starts yelling at me. And I go, I'm sorry, we're done. I go, have fun on your hour trip home, right? You just embarrassed your kid. You embarrassed all your families and everyone in this process. And so I think that was a big learning moment for my kids, like what we stand for and how we act. Because now 5 years later, right, they're the hardest working kids. They respect everybody. They handshake the umps. The catchers always, introduce themselves before the game. The field umpire, they always introduce themselves, and then they literally high five or fist bump them after every game, no matter we win or lose, right? And I've never put that in play. So that's just something that these kids learn throughout the process and throughout how their leaders, right, conduct themselves through everything. So it's always about their perspective of things. Nick Saban, right, he always says, I didn't invent any of this, I just learned, right? I think it's super important that, as a coach, you're a sponge, right? I don't know everything. There's probably conflicting things that we teach here, right? But at the end of the day, right, I'm always a sponge. Coach Mike is always a sponge, doing everything we can to learn from other people, especially as the game's evolving, right? Every year it evolves and evolves and evolves. So making sure that we can keep updated information, seeing how the colleges are teaching things, and trickle it back down and back through. So I think that's also big, just making sure that as coaches we're sponges, and it's not always just about your opinion. Think about it, right? What makes sense? Incorporate other drills, because not every kid is going to learn the same way, right? So making sure that you have other options or other ways of saying things or teaching things that may catch that other kid that might not be understanding. The next thing I have is like the importance of warm-ups in youth. I see it a lot in teams in general. They don't take the time to make sure that they're fully stretched. Stretching is important, not for multiple reasons, obviously, making sure your body's heated up, your muscles are warmed up. It helps like with flexibility and all kinds of other things. Mobility, gets their heart rate going, right? Because in games they're going to be high speed, and not all the time they get a chance to take a breath, right? We want to get them in the game mode as much as possible. So making sure that they are warmed up. Maybe that's like them, so maybe you have a 6 o'clock practice, right? Maybe you make sure they're at the field by like 5:50. Shoes on, by 5:55 they're already stretching. Because you are limited in time with what you can do, right? So we want to make sure, and again, not everybody can make it that early, but those who can, get them going, right? So then you're not taking away practice time to make sure that they're warmed up properly. So I always tell teams, take a light jog, right? Go to like, I don't know, center field fence and back, just a jog, and as a team, right? One kid or 2 kids are going to sprint. That's just what they do. They sprint all the way to the outfield fence, and they get all the way back, and then they're like, oh, where is everybody? Well, it's a team thing, team bonding. Usually someone says something dumb and everyone's laughing. Like it's just part of being the team, right? So jogging out to the outfield, coming back in, getting into a line, doing dynamics, like leg kicks or Frankensteins, scoops, lunges, hips. I'm big on the hips, making sure that they're like stepping over a fence both directions to work on their hip flexors. And then after they're done stretching, right, you start throwing, right? So start close and then get to long toss, which we'll cover some more of that later. Slowly work it back in, work on, quicker throws, quick hands, all those fun things, and then like everyday drills or whatever you may incorporate in your practices. So it should be so structured that like I've coached 10-year-olds, right? If I walk away, they automatically know what they're doing. They're not waiting on you. Right? So it should be so structured that every time they show up to the field, they automatically know what they should be doing at that specific time, right? Not every 10-year-old has a phone, but someone has a phone. They know what time it is, right? They might say they don't, but they do. And then the expectation is at 6 o'clock on the dot, you're on your jog, right? And then you have until 6:10 to get through all these things and be ready for practice to actually begin. Any questions about any of that? Structure is good for kids, right? They know what to expect, and they're not usually running around too much. All right, back to throwing, right? So I'm always big on starting close, working on wrist flicks, just kind of getting them moving. Then you're going to gradually kind of, increase your distance slowly. You always want to make sure, if possible, that the kids have time to long toss in their throws. Long tossing, even if they're not making the throw, you want to get air under it. A lot of times they just throw like line drive throws, but we want them to air out their arms. That's where they build their strength, that's safely, and making sure that their arm is healthy. And then as they get as far as they can for a few throws, then they start slowly working their way back in. And as they start working their way back in, that's when they're throwing line drive throws and they get close, right? Working on some footwork stuff, and then working on quick hands, getting the ball in, getting the ball out. So there's so many different things that can be worked on in just warming up throwing. And I feel like it can be a lot of times like an overlooked thing, like, oh, they're out there throwing, but no one's actually monitoring their throwing or what they're doing in their throwing, and are they doing it correctly? Are they working their footwork? Right? Are they working, stepping to catch and moving their feet ready for the next throw, even if they're not making the throw? Just working on those little things that make the difference in their development, and then obviously they'll see it in games. Again, also too, if it hurts, make them stop, right? We can figure out why their arm might be hurting, or a lot of times you see like someone say that their arm hurts, but they don't, at young ages, sometimes they don't understand what hurt really is. Sometimes it could be sore and they say it hurts. Sometimes it might actually hurt, but you never know until it can kind of maybe get checked out or give it a little bit of rest. Don't keep pushing it, just let them take a break. They can still do just about every drill and a practice without actually making a throw. They can still work on their footwork. They can still field ground balls. They can still come up like they're going to throw and not throw. There's a lot of times you see like the kid just like off to the side, like put them at first base. They can still catch, right? Keep them involved even if they are injured. There's still always things that they can do. Awesome. So another thing that I'm big on is like positive reinforcement. A lot of people call it like the sandwich method of approach when it comes to it. So I know when I say things, and sometimes I forget and I just blurt it out, but always lead with the positive, right? And then come in with, oh, that was good. Like your throw was good, but your footwork needs this, right? But you threw hard, right? So like kind of sandwich in the constructive feedback. I don't want to say the negative, but the constructive feedback. Because the first thing they're going to hear is the positive, right? If they just automatically, in general, they're just automatically going to hear the negative. Because that's just kind of how kids' brains work. They hear the negative, like, they don't think I'm good enough, is what they think sometimes. So we want to make sure that we kind of sandwich the positive things in there a lot to make sure that you're not always just picking on them, is what sometimes they think. Right, or going at them and what they do wrong. So always sandwich it, always hype up their success. I don't care if it's a base hit, whatever it is, right? And a lot of times we don't celebrate the little things, right? So there could be someone that puts down a bunt and they're out, but they scored a run or they moved a runner, and they're just all sad. Like, why are we sad? You literally just did a job. You sacrificed your at-bat, yourself, for your team. Like, that's what it's about. It's about the team. And especially at young ages, it's just they get so upset when they see that like they're not successful until they realize it's about the team, right? So there's different things that I've done as a coach to help or like motivate them about being about a better teammate. So sometimes I would even put at younger ages like a board in the dugout, right, of what a quality at bat is. Do you guys know like there's like 7 different quality at bats? Who knows one of them? Anyone? A hit, right? Obviously a walk. Hit by pitch is a quality at bat. But there's so many different ones. So like going deep in the count, even if you strike out, who cares, right? Maybe you fouled off 10 pitches. It's quality at bat, right? A lot of the times they just think because they did not get on base that it's not, like nothing was done, that they're just not successful basically. So we want to make sure that in this process that you are celebrating all the little things. So when it is something like, a teaching moment, they don't take it negatively. All right. Another thing is not overcoaching in games. I see it a lot where coaches are just yelling and trying to coach so much in games that the kids don't have fun. Right? Games should be the time that they're showcasing this, and I understand that there's not a lot of time for practices and other things like that. But when you can, that is really the time you want to try to coach as much as possible. So in games, they can have fun. They're going to make mistakes. Oh, well, right? But they're not going to learn if they can't fail first without worrying about what coach is going to say or what mom or dad is going to say on the way home, right? So always just kind of taking a step back. There's situations where you just want to yell, 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 yell. I've been there. It's tough, but just letting it play out sometimes is for the better. One last thing I want to go over is goal setting. Before every season, I always sit down with my team and ask, like, what are your personal goals? Write them down. What is your team goal? Like, maybe what winning percentage you want to be, or how many outs in a row do you make before an error? Errors are going to happen, right? So just something to kind of get them thinking about the future and what their goals are, because when they all have the same goal, things usually tend to go a little bit smoother through the process. All right, is there any questions about any of that? Yes?
I actually have a question.
Sure.
Going back to the pre-practice structure. Some of us are coaching kids that are 6, 7, 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And throwing, like getting loose throwing before practice, sometimes turns into touch the ball. So do you have any suggestions to adjust for that age group to like make it more productive?
How many coaches do you guys have on a coaching staff? 2, 3?
2 or 3, depending on how many parents.
This is the best way to do catch play for kids that are 6, 7, and 8 years old. Get 3 lines if you have 3 coaches. The coaches have the gloves on. Have 3 buckets of balls where the kids are throwing to the coaches and the coach is putting it in an empty bucket. You'll get more reps in. They won't be chasing the ball that's being overthrown over their head. And then you can do that and it'll take 4 minutes as opposed to 15 minutes to get them warmed up. That would be a great one right there.
That's a good one. Yeah.
So follow up to that, this could be a sidebar because I know
Yeah, please.
coaches here have older kids. One thing I cannot figure out is how to teach a kid how to catch a ball. Like, I just can't figure out a way to communicate to the 6, 7, 8-year-olds how to catch. Everything else I'm comfortable teaching, throwing, hitting, all that. And again, that could be a sidebar, but
No, that's good.
for 80% of this work.
I know when I do like lessons and stuff for like the younger ones, I try to do everything without a glove because they rely on the glove, right? They don't realize that the glove is just an extension of your hand, right? So I try to do a lot of like, I don't want to say squishy balls, but like wiffle balls or stuff like that or tennis balls where they're not afraid of getting hit by it, right? Because they know it's not going to hurt, and things where they're like kind of stepping and catching and just working on hand-eye coordination. I feel like it's sometimes stuff that might be missed at that age. Spending 5-10 minutes or being a station in your practice plan of just working on the hand-eye coordination might help some. Mike, do you have anything?
Yeah, huge proponent of not using a glove at the youth because unfortunately everybody goes out and buys their kids a new baseball glove or this or that and the other, and they're never broken in properly. The kids aren't strong enough to squeeze it closed, so that ball is just popping out, right? The number one reason that kids stop playing baseball and softball is that they can't catch. That's the number one reason why they stop playing the game. So that's a great point. Like, how can we get them to catch better? Fingers up, right? Fingers up. We move like this to catch a baseball, right? In a circular motion. So we always start with our fingers up and try to catch as many of those balls as we can, fingers up. Below the waist, that's when we can get down here, right? Teach your kids to be athletes, right? If the ball is a little bit lower and it's good, maybe go down and get it. They all just want to, so like let them be free, let them be athletic in that respect. Another thing is like to knock on her point of hand-eye coordination. They have this thing called a Hiko stick that we use in here. I'll grab it when we're done.
Okay.
Let you guys see it. But it's a 3-pegged contraption, and it's red, white, and blue. And we don't spin it, we don't make it hard for them, but we toss it to them lightly and say red, and then they have to grab the red. Toss it to them lightly, they got to grab the white, right? So that's a great training tool. They're $18 or something like that. They're not even expensive, so that's a huge one. And then short distances for the youth players. When they're playing catch with each other, let's keep them at shorter distances. Let's let them just from me and Mike, right? If me and Mike were just sitting here playing catch, keep their feet planted and just have them rotate and just lob a ball to the guy, right? And see how many they can catch in a row. Yeah, so these are the Hiko sticks. So Mike, I'm going to throw it to you, right? So red. Good. That's all we do. And they do that a whole bunch of times a day. You can throw them up in the air, right? You can work on fly balls, all different kinds of things with these. But I mean, this is a staple right here for our youth players because of the importance of catching the ball. She might go into it, but like in our youth practices, we spend more than half of it throwing and catching. Like we don't do batting practice at our practices. Batting practice and hitting, that's for at home. You know, that's for the cages. That's with mom and dad. You're never going to get enough reps at a baseball practice for hitting, right? And these kids need that development. So let's put them at 4 corners instead of throwing the 4 full 65 foot. Let's put them at 45 foot and have them throwing 4 corners around the horn, just constantly moving. Flip and follow. We can show you that drill. We do that with 4 corners at about 35 feet, where all the players fingers up, ball, 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 ball. The guy's running in, gives them a flip, they follow it, and then they go into the end of the next line, and they just keep working that around in the 4 corner. So that now you're working on, you know, not throwing it hard and not being scared to catch it, to also your good footwork on receiving the ball, proper way to flip the ball because kids don't realize that they need to follow it. And just because we're flipping and following, guess what? We need to follow our throws too. That's another thing that we need to work on with our kids is when we field a ground ball, right? We don't just go like this. No, we field it, we throw it, we get through it, we come back around, you know? So like those are just like things that will obviously help these little kids out. And there's a ton more, and we can give you some of those resources. Sidebars with me are taking like 15 minutes easily, so.
I don't think he breathes. A hecko stick. You want to catch it? No, I'm joking. No, but seriously though, like we have a bunch of 6 and 7-year-olds in here sometimes that I throw this at, and they're not scared of getting hit by it. Right? If I pull out a tennis ball, sometimes they're even like, it's a tennis ball. It'll just bounce off your head. Right? But these, they're flimsy. They're not going to hurt anybody. And they do work. The kids absolutely love working with them until you just spin them as hard as you can sometimes. Then they get all mad, and it turns into like a big game. But yeah, that was a great question. So playing catch is super important, and especially working without a glove a lot of the times. Even having to field ground balls, do all kinds of stuff, help works hand-eye coordination and funneling. So is there any other questions regarding that stuff before we go back into this? Awesome. All right, so I'm going to show you 2 pictures. I want you to tell me the difference between this picture and the next picture. All right, so what are the differences? I know there was only like 1 kid in that picture, but you can tell he wasn't doing much, right? So what we want to make sure is that practices are very interactive, where kids are getting a lot of reps and a lot of work that they need, right? A lot of the times, you can go to like a practice and they'll be hitting, and there's like one kid is hitting, while the other kids are just kind of standing around. And they're just fielding the ball. They're not really like making a play afterwards, or just dropping it in a bucket. So they're not really working anything, right? So we want to make sure that at all costs, no matter what you're doing, it's either station-based or everyone's getting something out of it. There's times where, like, cool, my kids, they need a hit sometimes right at practice, so I'll put them in the outfield hitting while the infield's getting work. And then the outfielders will be in the infield doing whatever they need to do, and the infielders are now in the outfield doing fly balls or drop steps or whatever the case may be. So there's always a way, and there's enough space on a field to make sure that everyone's getting what they need at the same time in stations, as long as we have enough coaches to kind of help and facilitate it all. So that brings us into kind of like the old school practices, right? A lot of the times too, you'll see there's teams, and it's hard at any level. You have like 5 completely different skill sets. Some kids that have never played before, some kids that have a lot of experience, right? And being able to kind of split them up and section them off helps them continue to grow, continue to get better, right? And I know softball in this room has done a great job, especially this year, trying to implement ABC teams, which will help, with progression and making sure kids aren't getting bored and being pushed to continue to get better. So I think that's a good thing as well. But keeping it competitive too in practice, right? Having some competitions, having some fun in it, having a winner. Maybe they get, I don't know, a Gatorade or a candy bar or whatever the case may be, or get to wear a chain. A lot of our teams, they have like these chains that they put on when they do something good, like teammate of the day, or maybe they make a game-winning hit or RBI or whatever the case may be, and then they get photos with it, and they think it's fun and exciting. So there's all different types of ways to do that stuff. I've seen big hats, like hats that are like this big. I don't know, weird things. But the kids love it, right? But we just want to make sure that all the kids are getting enough reps at practice. And that kind of goes into practice planning, right? Practice plans are huge. I wish I'd done this younger as a younger coach. I'm not that old, but I've been coaching now since, I don't know, when I graduated, like 2019 was when I graduated college. And I instantly went right back into basically came home and literally the next day was on a field coaching a travel team. And I wish back then I would have planned more for practices. You know, I could just wing it, but like having more of a plan, because there were so many things that we did not do right then, fundamentally, that if I would have had probably a little bit more of a plan in place, we probably would have been able to get more reps, right? So now I'm huge on practice plans. I have practice plans down to the minute of what we do. And then there's times where you'll have that practice plan and then there's something you got to continue to work on for another 10 to 20 minutes. It's fine, right? I just continue going down the next thing and then pick up with the next practice with what we need to continue. So making sure you have a plan. Time management. I always had to set timers because otherwise I'll never know what time it is. So segment the practices, making sure you're breaking up into stations or groups so everyone's working on different things. It kind of keeps them more interested when they're able to rotate and do different things like that. Keeping it competitive, doing the station work, whether it's drop steps, outfield fly balls, infield reps, four corners, flips, footwork, any of those things. But we want to try to keep practices as close to games as possible. So keeping them moving, keeping them engaged, because practices should be harder than the games, right? Keeping their endurance up, making sure that they're getting those reps. So when they are in the game situations, they're comfortable, right? And they know if they make a mistake, it is what it is. Let's fix it next time, learn from it, right? So another big thing that's missed in practices that I've found, and that's just base running and base running IQ. I feel like it's just, you hit the ball and you run the bases. But running bases where you win games or lose games. You see a lot of times kids are scared to take that extra base. So they're not aggressive because they don't want to get out. They have like a fear of getting out. I teach to be extra aggressive. If you get thrown out, whatever, right? More than likely, I trust my players to run in a straight line compared to a ball being thrown to its target. Until you get to older age groups, it's a little bit different, but same thing. I still trust my kids running from third to home on an outfield fly ball than the throw coming in, right? So being extra aggressive, because you can always kind of tailor them back, but you can't teach them to be aggressive once they're scared, if that makes sense. Making sure we're just, practicing ground balls and fly balls. Situational awareness, put runners on. I'm big too. If you can get two teams at a practice, I'd rather practice with two teams than one team. You have enough kids to be able to put them on bases, work on situational things, and that just turns into the IQ, right? So once they have that IQ, then they're more comfortable. They understand what's going on. They understand, in this situation, I need to do this, right? And so in those situations, we're not like over-stimulating them. Just give them like one scenario. Once they get that one scenario, because to every play, there's an A, B, C, D option that might happen, right? And not everything's predictable. So, no one on, no one out, you're going one. Cool. No one on, no one out, it's a bad throw. Outfield, you're shooting it two. Like, you know what I mean? So keeping it to the ABC kind of method and teaching them one thing at a time kind of helps them understand the IQ of the game, and rotating them in positions, making them play every position, even if they don't. That's how they're going to learn in practices, right? Getting reps just about everywhere. Is there any questions about any of that? No? Biggest thing is base running and IQ. I know just in general, it's a big thing at the college level right now that they're getting all these kids, but they don't have the situational IQ, they don't have the base running skills that previous generations had. They're always worried about how hard you hit the ball or how hard they can throw the ball overhand, but they're not worrying about the game inside the game. And I think that's where a lot of kids, and it starts with our youth, right? Making sure we're developing their IQ, their comfortability, and then continuously, pushing them into different scenarios and getting them uncomfortable, right? Mike, do you have anything to touch on any of that? Cool. Awesome. Next thing is keeping them engaged and keeping that passion, right? All the kids love the game, but at some point, something happens where they no longer love it, right? Whether that's they can't catch a ball, or they weren't taught properly, or maybe someone just keeps nagging them or yelling at them, or they're scared to make mistakes in what the car ride home is going to be like, right? So there's so many different things, right? Kids love to play just because they love to play. I don't know how many of you have played when you were younger and played wiffle ball in the front yard, because I know I did, and I loved playing it every single day. But there was a point in my career where I lost love for the game, and I had to re-find it. Like, why did I do this? Why did I do this my whole life? And that was like right before college, right? So making sure that they're still having fun and it's not just their lives. They're still a person, they're still human, right? So yeah, everyone loves the game and you got to work hard at it, but they're still kids. They still need to have fun. They still need to spend time with their friends. And that's more on the softball side for some reason. Mike and I talk about it all the time. Baseball players, they get days off. They get to do all this stuff. But softball players, they're literally going 7 days a week nonstop. It's insane. It's burning kids out. Kids are getting hurt. So making sure that they still have time to have fun. Practices is where all that magic happens, and that's where you make those relationships with the kids, right? So again, it's back to all the relationships. Be that coach that in 10 years from now they see you and they're excited to see you, right? There's some times where you see kids that avoid old coaches or avoid whatever. Don't try to make sure that they have such a good experience that no matter what part of their life that they feel comfortable coming back and asking you questions or coming and seeing you or coming back and helping, right? Because in general, that's what it's all about. Keeping it moving and making sure you're always celebrating their progress, right? It could be something so small, but to them it means the world that you're seeing it and you're happy for them, all right? And just making sure that you invest the time into practices and having that plan in place for them. Next thing I want to talk is a little bit more about the fundamentals of base running, because it is such a thing that's under taught in my opinion. We want to be attacking the bases, taking as many bases as possible. It's okay to be out, and then we learn from the mistakes, so we want to try to get that fear out of them from being out, right? They always feel like when they get out that they let their team out or let their team down, but we just want to make sure that they feel okay, like, hey, I learned from it. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. It probably will happen again, but hopefully after the second time they kind of learn from it and it's set, right? So base running is overlooked, right? We want to make sure that if we have aggressive base running more than 9 times out of 10, you're going to win if you can get the runners on and then be aggressive, right? And that's putting those different situations and plans in place. They need to learn how to read the defense, read the pitch projection, right? How is it coming in? Is it going to be in the dirt? You should be going automatically, right? Things like that. Well, I shouldn't say automatically, but at least from first to second, depending on situations, right? Making sure we're getting proper rounds, right? The farther out away from the bases you get, longer it takes to get there. And there's so many different things. So the basics of running, right? So this is for baseball and softball, obviously more at high school and youth levels, but hard 60s, we're running to first base, we're running to all the bases hard, right? Making sure they're being held accountable. When they run through first base, they're always looking right as they hit the bag to make sure that the ball is not passed, right? And they should be able to hear it too. So I know with my girls, I work on it, they'll run to first. As they're hitting first, they look right, and I'll be like behind them where they can't see it, but sometimes I'll throw a ball into the fence, so they have to learn to hear it. Once they kind of learn that noise, it's hard for them they'll hear it over parents screaming, right? Because they're like trained to hear it, the chain fence. I don't know, it's interesting. Making sure they're hitting the inside of the bag to get a good round. Hitting the front of the bag on through first, to me that's something that's controllable. I'm all about all the things we can control, right? So if you can't hit the front of the bag all the time, I used to put phones down on top of the bag, all kinds of things, and it makes them hit the front or hit the inside of the bag. But this is a game of inches. If we're not or hitting the very back of the bag, more likely you're going to be out. So, all right, inside of the bag, we're hitting that. I'm big on hitting it with your left foot. There's always controversy on either or. I believe if I'm running to first and I'm going to hit the inside of the bag with my left foot, it's easier to get my hips rotated to get if your hips are pointed towards where you're running, that's where you're going to go. In my opinion, if you go with your right foot, my right foot is automatically going towards like center field. So that's just how I teach it. And that with that coming in, right, if you are using your left foot, you got to get a good tilt. If you don't have a tilt in your run, you're going to be up and down. So you're going to be like off balance or trip or fall when you're rounding first base. You see it a lot that happens. So we want to make sure we're hitting the inside of the corner. I'm big on the left foot, but at this age, any foot works as long as they're getting a good round to get their hips in the proper positions. So this is kind of like the example you can see in the photo. This is a baseball field, but it works both baseball and softball. That the runners kind of lanes, right? They got to stay in the lane. They get too wide. Sometimes you'll see kids that are almost in the outfield for some reason, and I never understand why. I put cones out. I stand there. I stand on top of the bag every practice, and my kids are 16 years old. Stand on top of the bag, and if they hit my toe, I'll be very angry. But they work on their rounds. Front of the bag, I stand in the front and make sure that they're hitting the front as well. But if you put cones around, they kind of start to understand the path that they should take to stay within the cones. It kind of helps them understand the muscle memory of the rounding. I'm going to let Mike go over leadoffs for baseball.
First off, let's stand up. Let's all stand up and stretch.
Oh, good.
Woo! My goodness.
Yeah, you're going to do leadoffs?
That's awesome. All right, that's good enough. Just get loosened up, back in action. So, leadoffs. Obviously, there's no leads in softball. Baseball leads are unique, and I'm gonna do a shameless opinion here. I think that youth baseball should not be doing leads and steals. I think it's stupid. I think it's the dumbest thing I watch. Anything under 13 years old, it's bad. It's really bad. Even at the travel levels, leads and steals, what are we teaching our kids? First off, there's never going to be a play at second base when you have a runner at first base in the youth leagues, because they're all automatically at second, then they're automatically at third, and then they're automatically home because the catcher can't catch, right? So like it's destroyed the integrity of the development of the game. But unfortunately, our leagues require it, and we have to do it. So we have to teach it properly. Youth baseball players, 2 steps. 2 steps is all you need. I have yet to go to a 12 and under baseball game and watch a catcher gun kids out stealing second base. I don't see it. It doesn't happen. Unless a little 12-year-old is one of those, he might be 15, like he's already fully developed. We've seen some 12-year-olds like that. So like they're not doing it. They're not throwing anybody out. So what we want to do is we want to teach them, how to read the pitcher. That is the most important thing. Read the pitcher. And she alluded to this earlier. Read the pitch too. When that ball is going in the dirt, we call those dirt ball reads, right? So like as we're at first base as base runners, or second base as base runners, we're watching the pitch. I mean, we should be locked in, focused on that pitcher. We should be locked in on his legs, right? Nowhere else. There's no other reason to look anywhere else other than his legs, okay? Once you know that ball is being released, your eyes should be on the ball. If you see it in the dirt, go. Don't hesitate, go. I'm telling you, they can't block it, and they can't throw it to third base either, right? So it's the aggression that I think will help you guys more than anything. 2 steps off the base. I know I have right, left, right shuffle. That's for high school. That's for the older age kids. The youth kids, they just need 2 big steps and make sure that they can get back to the bag. The Wildcat. I don't know how much baseball you guys watch, but if you've watched any college baseball in the last month and a half, it seems as though every single team is going to this Wildcat lead, where it's almost a walking lead off of the base. So they'll get a nice walking lead, and then they'll see the pitcher, and then they're gone, right? What they're doing is they're kind of just trying to mess with the pitcher's timing. Number one, we watched it last night. Norton and Stowe played, and the runner kept back and forth, and the pitcher threw 4 straight balls after that. Right. So like there's some gamesmanship to that. I don't think you guys need to teach your youth players that. As a matter of fact, I would avoid the Wildcat lead in the youth as much as possible until they're of athletic age to be able to do that.
Now, for like 2 or younger, they can't lead off, correct? That's at least what I was told.
Okay, maybe
Not for
it.
baseball.
What's it?
Not for baseball. Tournament teams, they will, but not.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, 12 and up will lead off.
Oh, good. That's a good change.
Yeah, and we're looking at limiting that too. Yeah, for that very reason, we don't want track meets. We want, to your point, like a runner on first and second, and then what does the infield do then?
Right.
So what are the 4 outs and making those intelligent decisions?
Learn some situational baseball.
Right.
Yeah. Learn how we grew up playing the game, having a little bit of fun. That's as simple as I think we can make leads and steals. So this is kind of giving you a zone effect of where the older kids can get to. The pre-zone here, this would be where they're stationary, hop, here, back, go, right? So that kind of gives you an idea of what they're doing when they get off the bag. This is their primary, secondary, their third, their hop, and their back, but they're always moving, and it's freaking nuts. I mean, catchers aren't throwing anybody out in college baseball right now. It's unbelievable the amount of steals. And they're starting to do it in Major League Baseball, and you're going to see steals go through the roof this year in Major League Baseball because you can't even have a toe as a fielder blocking second base. If your toe is blocking second base and the umpire deems that, automatically safe. So they're even changing the game there a little bit too, which is kind of wild. But I know that doesn't really pertain to our youth players, but that kind of gives you a little perspective about what this is. Got out of the softball one.
So yeah, softball. I'm not exactly sure what the rec leagues are, but there's 2 ways that it's taught. I'm big on the left foot on the front of the bag. With your right foot behind, because that gives you the opportunity, because you have to leave when the ball's released, that gives you the opportunity, if you leave at 12 o'clock, your foot on your first step is still on the bag. So it kind of helps give a little bit of momentum, a little bit of push, and it helps with timing. I see so many different things. Some people start the same way, but their right foot out and their arms up as timing. I don't know, just a lot of different things, but I kind of teach it as more of like a track lead off. You get in your legs a little bit more of a jump and a push start. That kind of helps. So when it comes to like first and third, you can get a little, you don't want to be as far off the bag, maybe about 5 steps or so on your lead off, on your sprint off the bag. Second base, I usually teach like 8 steps. So you're sprinting about 8 steps off, because the odds, especially at this age, they're not going to throw behind you. And if they do, it's go to third, right? So I think it's just hard to get the kids to realize that if you are in this position, you can leave at the 12 o'clock on the wind-up. And then that's something that can be practiced a lot, even if it's just a coach, doing the wind-up and all the kids are working on their lead-offs and making sure they're exploding off the bag. And then when they end, they're in an athletic position, if they don't steal, to either dive back or continue to go. So they got to be athletic in their movements. Any questions with any lead-offs? Any questions with any lead-offs? Awesome. Cool. So I'm also big on bunting, and I know most kids hate bunting. Everyone hates bunting, but it does a lot of things for the hitter as well. One, it doesn't only put pressure on the defense. It'll help make you a better offensive player, to be someone who can either get a hit or drop the bunt, right? Defenses don't really know what's coming. Move runners in scoring positions. It also helps a lot, too, if someone's struggling to hit. I always have them just go bunt, right? Because it helps them track the ball in. They're seeing it more. Their head isn't flying, and they're able to kind of be behind the ball to watch it hit the bat. Making sure when we are teaching bunting, if you do bunt, that the bunt gets down before we try to run. Otherwise, we end up kicking the ball and we're out. Helps lead to RBIs, and it's a great momentum builder. I can't say how many games we won in college just from bunting. It's weird, but it happens because third baseman or first baseman might be on their heels. Helps them just to kind of create some momentum, and especially in softball, you have slappers, so you can work on the short game and getting some speed, as they call them, table setters, for bigger hitters to come in and do what they do. So different types of bunts. You have your sacrifice bunt, which is just getting the bunt down, moving runners. Your drag, which isn't really taught unless you're a lefty. You have a push bunt, kind of push it past those who are crashing. Squeeze, safety squeeze, which is the runner's not going unless the ball's down. Then you have the suicide squeeze where they're automatically going. And then I'm big on fake bunt steals at the older levels to kind of get in the catcher's eyes, bring the bat back right into their face. Typically they either juggle it or they're kind of late in their reaction to make a throw. All right, so if you guys want to stand up again, we can go in there. I'll show you guys some fielding drills. We'll go over a couple hitting drills that you guys can do, and then some catching drills as well. What we do with our youth, and at least in all the teams I've ever coached, what we do is after you're done warming up and you're throwing, go straight into your everyday drills. Right, so you want to be on your knees. They do not have a glove on. Right, we want to make sure they get a good hinge on the hips. Right, posture's forward. They start down the middle. They're working glove hand only, and making sure their palm is going through the ball forward. So a lot of times with youth that they see, they kind of do like things or come straight up. If palm goes forward, more likely it'll stick in their glove, and we want to go the same path that the ball is coming into. So we'll do like 10 or 12, and then we'll go to forehands, which is glove side, and then we go to backhands, same thing. Backhands are important, that palm forward, staying in the same path of the ball. After that, then they put their gloves on, do like, 10 each or something. Then they'll put the gloves on, do it again. Then they're going to stand up and do the same thing. So when they're standing up, we just want to make sure that they're in a good athletic position, right? Their weight is a little more forward. We don't want them on their heels because we don't field ground balls like this. That's why it's important too, like when they're on the ground doing these, a lot of times you'll see kids do this. Like we don't field ground balls like falling backwards, right? We want to be forward and hinged. So when they stand up, we want to be in a nice athletic position. Weight forward, we want the ball out in front where our head can see it. Because a lot of times you see it back here, you can't see the ball coming in and how it's, like the different hops that it's taking, right? So we just want to be nice, athletic, and forward. 10 middle, 10 forehand, 10 backhand. And when they stand up, they can put their glove on. After that, sometimes coaches go into like outfield drills or like fly ball drills or quick hands where they're just tossing the ball, working on getting the ball in, getting the ball out, stepping to it, right? Working on their feet, moving their feet through the ball. They don't have to throw it right when they get it, right? They're just working on their next throw. A couple other fielding drills. Grab. I don't know, just pretend this is a cone. Or you can use a bucket, right? They'll start in the front. I call this like around the cone or around whatever you have. They're going to do quick choppy feets around the box or whatever into the ground ball. You can do it forehand, middle, and backhand. Backhand, they'll go the opposite way. So they work on their angles, come around it. Backhand. Sorry. We'll come around it into a backhand, working on their footwork. Big thing with a lot of these drills and a lot of kids, they go straight at the ball. They don't work on the angle of the ball, right? We always want to beat the ball, not go right at it. There's another drill. I don't want to get a PVC pipe, but like let's use this line here. You can even draw a line. We want to make sure that they're in front of it or behind it. When they get the ball, it's out in front, right? Because we don't want them fielding it here. So it kind of helps them like visually see getting the ball out in front of them compared to like right underneath of them. So those are the ones for fielding that I have. Do you guys have any questions regarding anything fielding wise? Those ones are just easy to implement in practice. In stations or groups, and it keeps them engaged and their feet moving and quickly. A lot of times after around the cone, then I started incorporating like a throw or more chop hits or whatever you want to call them, and making sure after they come around, they follow their throw when they're done. Helps protect their arms as well. Any questions?
Competition too. Create competition within your practices. They could be as simple as knocking the ball off of the tee, right? Set up a tee at first base, put a ball on top of it, have them at shortstop with the ball in their glove. You don't even have to field it. It's already in your glove. Proper footwork. Try to throw the ball. Count up how many they hit, and maybe they don't have to run the bases that day or something. I don't know. But the reality is, as she said it earlier, is that all of our kids want to compete. They're competitive, right? So, let's incorporate that into our practices and have it be like righteous competition, not the win at all cost competition.
Pretty much. You want to go over some catching drills?
Yeah, catching drills. So, again, I understand that I'm talking with youth players, right? Your best option is to not use a catcher's mitt at 8U. Is to not use a catcher's mitt at 10U, okay? If you have a kid that's 4'1", and weighs 49 pounds, and you give him a 28.5-inch catcher's glove, he's not closing it, and he's not catching the ball either, right? And it's all down like this. Okay, so I'm gonna go over. This is very important, I think. All right, when I played, I was a catcher, so I can still get down and do my thing. This was our stance. We just sat here, catch the ball. We got a runner on. We're up on 2 feet, ready to go. I wish I had the one knee down catching when I was a youth player. Probably would have saved my knees a lot. I probably would have been more athletic. I probably would have been a little bit quicker on the bases because I got thunder thighs because I was catching all my life, right? So we absolutely teach our youth players to have one knee down, okay? And one knee down and setting on that back leg, right? Our weight is here. Now they're stable. They're not getting knocked off the ball. They're not getting pushed over. They're stable, right? So now all they have to do is catch the ball. Now, the new way they teach it, show it, bring it down, go receive it. We don't need to do that. Show the target, hold it, catch the ball. Okay, they can block right out of this too. They literally be in this position, boom, boom, block it, right? It's easier for them to block as well. Runners on base, whatever, man. The high school catchers up at the Wadsworth High School, they're throwing from one knee down. They're not changing their stance because there's a runner on base. They're still quick enough to get out. So that would be the first thing. Is absolutely teach them one knee down, and then tell them when they're supposed to have which knee down, because you do change it, right? So when there's a right-handed batter in the box, your left knee's up, right? When there's a lefty in, your right knee's up, because we're trying to protect the middle of our body, right? If I have a righty up, I sure as hell don't want to be standing here like this, right? There's no protection. So we want to make sure that teach them, hey, switch your knee, no big deal. It's real quick. It only takes getting hit once or twice, and then you make that call real quick. So that would be like stance-wise. Receiving, same thing that we're teaching with our older kids, I would teach with the younger kids, and that's thumb control. Okay, so left hand thumb control. So if we're fingers up, okay, when we're catching, we're more like this, okay? So this thumb has to get up underneath the ball for them to catch it. So that's what I'm working with. So if Coach Kailey throws me a ball and I'm down here catching, I'm catching it and trying to pull it up, okay? Trying to get my thumb underneath it. And then she's going to roll me a ball, right? And I'm going to have my thumb down and I'm going to pull it straight up, okay? That gets them used to getting underneath it, right? So definitely barehanded, working through, right? Rolling it, working it through. Blocking drills. Come on, man. Every one of us can't wait to get our catchers in gear and start freaking pelting them with baseballs and softballs, right? That's one of the greatest joys in my life. Hey, it's blocking day, guys. Let's go, gear up. And I'm just hucking them. Nope. Get some tennis balls. Get some smash factor balls. Let them get comfortable. Use wiffle balls. Let's work on the proper mechanics and the proper way to do it. From the one knee down set, you can still get to 2 knees down on the block. It's very simple, okay? But you don't have to. You can block literally from that position. The next thing I think fly balls, pop-ups for catchers. I still don't see youth players being able to see a ball up, first off, right? And then understand that ball is not going to stay where you think it's at. It's going to go one way or the other, right? So if I'm looking at the pitcher, right, and there's a pop-up right here to the catcher, the first thing I'm teaching my catchers is get rid of your mask, okay? The second thing is turn your back. Turn your back to the field. So you come here and you look for the ball because that takes away the backspin. And then you can walk right in on it, right? Because a lot of them will go, and you've seen it 1,000 times, and it lands 2 feet behind them, and you're like, what are you looking at, right? Well, they're not looking at the proper angle, and they can't see the ball. They can't see the spin. Well, if you turn your back, you'll be able to see it. So past that, I think that's about all you guys need for your catchers. Get them catching the dang ball and, hopefully throwing a couple kids out in the 10U level because they're not going to have steals or leads.
Yeah. You want to do some hitting?
Yeah, let's do some hitting.
Go ahead.
All right, sweet. So some hitting drills. These will be easy. I'll be right back. I'm going to grab something. I like to think about what's wrong with our current training methods and teaching methods with youth players, right? And so like when I started going down the path of all the kinesiology and the biometrics of the swing and breaking it all down, like the one thing I realized with youth players is that none of them are strong enough to swing the bats that the parents are buying them. And it's not the parents' fault. It's just the bats that are available, right? Like when let's do that little 4'1", 49-pound kid again, right? And you hand him a 28-18, so a 28-inch long bat, 18 ounces, yeah, that's probably the best bat for him, right? But it's still too dang heavy, right? And what happens with the heavy bat? They're in their stance. The very first thing that happens is the hands come down here and they're swinging like this and they're casting, right? So in order to avoid that, our youth players swing a ton of PVC pipes here. We have them cut down short. They're hitting wiffle balls off the tee, right? We're doing a walking, swinging progression because watch the walking swing. And even if I wasn't a good baseball player, right? And when I swing this, like you'll be like, holy crap, that guy's self-organized and everything, right? Because it's light. Our bodies are natural in our swinging pattern. So what I do is a step behind with them, okay? And I'll just have them step behind and swing as hard as they can, right? And get after it. And see my back leg kicking? Every time I swing, my back leg comes off. A lot of you guys are teaching squash the bug, right? Stop it. Stop it. We're not squashing the bug. That's not a natural movement. It's not anything that's going to help your players, okay? Let this back leg be free. Let it be free because all your power comes from here, lock out, swing, and rotate. Knee drive, right? Knee drive is what they want. That is what they need to teach and not squash the bug, all right? So PVC pipe swings. Put a station up with 3 kids and all of you guys are capable of buying a $5 10-foot piece of PVC. If you're not, let me know. I'll buy it for you, right? And then get some stations up and have the kids in that station doing it. Tee work. Adamant about tee work in here. Adamant about it. The number one... It drives me nuts when they're like, oh, let's just throw, let's just hit machine. Well, that's cool, but what are you working on, right? What are we working on? Well, when we're working off the tee, we're working on direction. We're working on plane. We're working on contact points, right? So you get your base out, you get your home plate out, and you have 3 positions that you're going to teach a kid how to hit a ball from. The inside, the middle, and outside. Those are the only 3 that matter, okay? And so in doing that, though, we want to make sure that we put our tee in the right spot. So if I'm hitting an inside pitch, I'm a right-handed batter, okay, and I have a middle set on the tee. Middle set means the middle of my body at this point here, okay. If I'm hitting an inside pitch, I'm probably hitting it 12 to 18 inches out in front of the plate. So that's where we put our tee, right? And we make sure that the kid is actually pulling the ball and hitting it to the left side of the field. If I'm hitting middle, I'm 1 inch, maybe 2, maybe a little bit on top of the plate, right? So let's make sure that we set our tee up here. And then our direction is straight middle. Outside pitches, boy, I'm burying it right on my middle, right? Right on the middle of my body, because that's where I want to hit it, right? And now what you do is, to make this a good drill and a natural progression for them, is you change the position of the tee every 3 swings. Never more than 5, right? So you go 3 in the inside, 3 in the middle, 3 on the outside, next guy, right? And then that way you're moving, you're getting through it real quick. And then I would work with your guys very specifically on hitting. I would work, we call it high tee stop at contact, where we'll put a high tee up here and we'll get our player to get into this position and hit the ball and then stop at extension, right? Some people, like Pete Alonso, does this a lot. I don't know if anybody watches the Home Run Derby or not, but the last couple years they've been showing his Home Run Derby warm-ups, and he literally hits 3/4 of his balls out of the ballpark and never finishes his swing. He goes like this, out of the ballpark, out of the ballpark, you know? So like the reason why, right? The reason why is that you're the most powerful you're ever going to be in the swing at contact. If you're in a good position, the most powerful position you're ever going to be at is contact, right? So if we can get to contact, that's where all the power is, and then we can teach a proper swing plane, right? Because you cannot stop at contact when you cast, right? When our wrists break, that's what we call casting, okay? You can't stop at contact when you cast. Every kid's going to be doing that. So this teaches them contact, no cast. So those are some really, really super simples. As far as hitting, like both softball and baseball, like I'm doing front toss with them with the full field. That way we're getting balls put into play, right? Kids are running the bases. Like, you can do all of that in a 15-minute time period, and every kid's going to get 5 or 6 at bats if you're rotating fast, right? You got some kids on the bases, you got some kids in the field, and you got some kids hitting. I don't know if she's going to talk about this or not, but work with each other this summer and spring. What that means is, Matt, when you're practicing at 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning and Joe has had 5 practices canceled and he has nothing on Saturday, call him up. Be like, hey, man, let's practice together. Like, you know, you guys will get more done with 2 teams than you'll ever get done with your own team, right? Because you'll have more bodies, more coaches, and more things for those guys to be doing. So don't hesitate to, get your guys involved. Any questions on hitting or anything that I talked about? Yes, sir.
Do you have a recommended length for the pipe for the kids?
Yeah, so if they're going to swing off the tee, whatever, I think 30 inches and below would be good for you guys. So you can buy one of these and get 3 of them out of it. So, yeah, absolutely, 30 inches.
What's your feeling on side toss?
Side toss? We don't do it here. It's just, I don't know where the timing comes from. I like a top drop, right? Like, I like where a guy stands here and drops it down. But tossing from the side, I know some people like it, but I'd rather hit off the tee, right? Because I'm never going to see a ball moving towards my belly. So,
elbow up.
Back elbow?
Yeah.
Back elbow's up. Immediate is this, right?
Well, I'm just saying, like, what's your preference?
Relaxed. It should be kind of like, it's a comfort thing. But if you're like this, all your knuckles are lined up, you're never going to get a proper push through the ball, right? You're going to naturally just kind of roll over and end, right? So you want to be relaxed to where, if you're like this, again, you're just naturally going to be here, right? So you kind of want to be, I don't want to say elbows down, but comfortable where you're relaxed enough to snap through the ball, get through extension. Because if you're like this, you can't hit extension. And again, you don't need to finish your swing to get what you need out of a ball, right? So otherwise you can't hit that. Does that make sense?
yeah, I feel about elbow up like I feel about squashing the bug. stop saying it, because it's not a natural movement for the player. It's not like when you take their elbow and drive it up, it takes every bit of their athleticism away from them in their swing, because as they get older, we can put a bat. Remember Kipnis? Everybody remembers Jason Kipnis, right? He was here, but on the swing, his bat was pulled back to here off his body, and the very first thing that happened is the elbow comes down and the swing comes up and through, right? So when we do the elbow, like Coach is saying here, they'll never be able to swing our PVC pipes because they're going to be hitting the ground every single time. Can't get through it. Loose elbows. Good. Anything else?
Basically, everything that was covered back here is baseball and softball. So, any other questions regarding any of this?
Do you have a recommended age for teaching them how to slide?
As early as possible. Because I feel like the longer you wait for sliding, they get more scared of it for some reason. I always taught with, it might be a rainy day and the outfield's wet or whatever, or at home on a slip and slide, but there's practices where outfield's soaked, we're out there sliding, as long as you're not tearing up a field too much, right? But I say the earlier the better, because when they're 8, they usually don't have a fear yet. When they get older is when they kind of develop that fear of sliding and diving. So,
Joe, I got to ask, Joe is a good ball player, so I'm gonna bust on him a little bit. If you're teaching a kid how to hit, what's the number one thing you're teaching them? Yeah. Lower half. Yeah. Lower half. I think that's the second most important thing. The most important thing, I feel, swing the bat hard. Swing it hard, right? Too many of these kids are afraid to swing it because they're afraid to miss, and they lose all of their mechanics the moment they slow their swing down, right? So teach them, when they're on that tee, hit that dang ball as hard as you can, and then watch that lower half get going. Couldn't get that word out, sorry. But yeah, I mean, that's a simple one right there. Good.
I see
Anybody
that a
else?
lot in softball. Yeah.
So we've got a couple girls who good swingers, hard.
Uh-huh.
They have a tendency, they just want to swing to the fences. They're like, let go of one knee. So we're trying to break that habit as much as possible. Just hold on to the bat. It's like they're just in their head, let go.
Yeah, if they're letting go too early, they're not getting to extension. What I would do is just a lot of extension work off the tee, is just swinging to here because you have to keep both hands on the bat. Because then after that, if you let go, it's fine. But it sounds like they're letting go too early and they're not even hitting that because they kind of come around their body. I would do just a lot of extension. I do a lot with a lot of kids, but just getting to this position, making them feel their legs, because a lot of youth players that we see, and even our own, they don't use their legs like at all. They think this is their hips. Like, that's not your hips. Like, this is where you get your power from, because our legs are our strongest muscles. So extension and hips and swinging hard. Just like Mike said, like, I see so many, especially young girls that come in for like lessons and stuff, and they kind of just swing to contact, right? I always say you're not here to swing to the ball, you swing through the ball, and it creates a big difference in them swinging hard. So.
The other thing that I notice a lot too is they're so worried about stepping with their foot that they either have this really awkward like pick up and set down, or they pick up and they're like completely stepping out with it. Like, is there a way to shift the weight? Why not, like, all they do is open up?
When they open up, do they fall back?
Sometimes.
Yeah, so
And I just tell them, like, look where your foot is.
yeah. I've done things where I put buckets behind them,
Okay.
bricks behind them where they can't step back. But just, they got to realize, like, this isn't going to do anything besides timing,
Yeah.
right? It's everything else, so making sure that foot's down first. But that's where I kind of, like, isolate their foot where they can't really move. It's a hard one to break, but just small movements helps.
Yeah, you can see if you can get them to a nose stride.
Yeah.
Heel what?
A nose stride. So just outside of your shoulders, instead of shoulder width, your feet on the outside of the shoulder, and then you're literally just here and through. There's no step.
Yeah, so their timing's like your heel instead of the toe.
I mean, a lot of the elite players call that a piece. There is swing a piece. But there's nothing wrong with doing these swings right now to make contact.
Anything else? No? All right, cool. We'll go back in there, we'll finish up, and get out of here. I think we're pretty much done. practice seriously, making sure the kids are having fun, always, encouraging them in a positive way, keeping them engaged, definitely keep working on base running and the fundamentals and IQ and situations. I know I touched on it and Mike touched on it too. Practice together, right? You guys are an organization. You guys are, half the time those kids don't even know each other, right? So, we do it big here where all of our kids come and work together, male and female. So all the boys and the girls, they know each other. They know who they are. They're working together to reach a common goal. So don't be afraid to intermix, teams and getting practices done, working on those situations and everything that you guys need to do to have a great season. So that is all we have. Mike, I don't know if you have anything else, but thank you guys for coming out. Right? I'm glad to be able to get baseball and softball while we're together, kind of intermingle and see each other, right? Because you guys are all here for the same goal. And if there's ever anything we can do to help, whether it's practice planning or questions or swings or whatever the case may be, please reach out, right? An email that goes to both of us is help@hit24.com, right? Or call us, right? And we'll be happy to talk to you guys and help in any way we can.
Thanks, Coach. All right, last thing I have for you guys, and I'm going to get you out of here.
Why is it so small?
I've had a rule since I started doing baseball with the community 10 years ago, and that is you'll never see me display a trophy in my facility. And so we win them, we like them, but we don't display them. We let the kids and the families and the coaches and everybody else have them. And then we had a special group of kids, 18U group last year when a gigantic event, right? The Monster Bash, which is one of the bigger 18U tournaments around, and they won it. And the coach was so proud. Ronnie Spears is the head coach of that team. Ronnie Spears is the assistant head coach at Kent Roosevelt High School. He played at Eastern Kentucky, and he was a drafted baseball player. He was literally the best baseball player I ever watched play that didn't play professionally. He was awesome, okay? And he's an awesome dude, and he's an attorney. And he walked in here so proud, and was like, Mike, we did it, man. And I'm like, I got it. I got it. And I said, all right, coach, that's the only trophy we're ever going to keep. It's the only one we're ever going to keep. We're going to put it in the corner. Number one, it's obnoxiously big, and I can tell funny stories about it, right? Number two, it's going to serve as a reminder to me that is the least important thing that we're ever going to do for any of the kids that ever play baseball or ever have the opportunity for myself or any of you to coach. That trophy. I can promise you guys I am the most competitive person you've ever met. I can promise you that, right? I cheat at Monopoly. I cheat at any household family game that I can to win because I refuse to lose, right? That's how I was my entire life. I refused to lose, right? So that to me is more valuable than a trophy that says you won a championship. Now this group, 18U, they graduated last year. So other than the bottom row, from here to Caleb, these guys are 2025s. All of those 2024s off of one team, off of one summer ball team. Those are two organizations, the Outlaw Baseball Club and the Rubber City Renegades. The Rubber City Renegades was an inner city program that started years ago that I admired so much and got to know the guys really well. And then when they were done coaching their kids, they said, hey, why don't we merge? And so we did. So we merged that group together. And this was the result. But every one of these kids on here, every single one of those kids on there, will remember everything that was taught that was good and positive. Not the yelling, the screaming, and winning at all costs. I mean, I know I'm harsh in the way I talk sometimes, and I'm so sorry for it, but your wins this summer don't matter. Not a single one of them matter. Whether or not you win the league championship doesn't matter. It doesn't make you a good coach. It doesn't mean you had the best team, right? What matters is that those coaches, maybe when they're seeing their kids 18 years old, they get invited to their graduation party. I got invited to Ethan Green's graduation party, and then this is my last story. I like to tell this story. I got invited to Ethan Green's graduation party. Ethan Green started playing for me when he was 9 years old, and we were coaching the Dingoes. So all the way back then, even before the Outlaw Baseball Club started. Everybody told me he was fat. Everybody told me he was slow. Everybody told me he couldn't throw. Everybody told me he couldn't hit. He had the worst feet. Blah, 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 blah. Until he was 13, 14 years old, right? I listened to high-level coaches telling me that kid was never going to make it. That kid went to bed every single night with his baseball bat and baseball glove. Every night. He loved it, right? And so 14U season comes up, and I had a different guy in here working with me then. He's like, we got to cut Ethan. He's like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm like, well, we're not cutting this kid, you know? So obviously he goes on. He's a 3-year starter at Wadsworth High School, and now he's a starter at Tri-C, which is a powerhouse JUCO school here. Okay. Well, I say all that because I went to his graduation party, and I'm at the graduation party, and Ethan Green is a baseball guy, right? He's a baseball guy, and so I'm looking. There's 36 boys there. And I started looking around. And by the time we got done, 32 of them had played baseball for me. 32 of them boys that were graduating last year played baseball for me. I think I got invited to 18 of their graduation parties. 18 of the 36 kids that were there. 3 of them are seniors this year that were at the party, that were juniors. That would be my son, Kailey, and Philip Garcia. So, but the rest of them were all these dudes, right? And what I want you guys to know, more than any of all of this other stuff, the most important thing is building a relationship of trust with your players. If you guys can do that, your season's going to be amazing. Don't hesitate. If you guys need anything, if you want this, if you want more drills, if you want more suggestions, don't hesitate. We'll give it to you. There's nothing that we have that we don't want you to have. Okay? So, make sure that if you need something, reach out. If you want to ask us to come and run a practice this year, by all means, reach out. Ask us to come run a practice. We will. I'm not going to do it every single day for every single person, but we will do as many as we can. And we want to see you guys successful. So have an amazing season. And thanks for coming out, guys. I appreciate you. You guys got any questions? No? We good? Awesome. Go home. Have a good day, guys. Thank you.
Any baseball guys with a truck